Okay. We'll give a couple minutes for people to show up. And then we'll start doing things. Also, so much has happened on the piece of paper. I'm going to have to rewrite the piece of paper very soon. So much stuff. We've probably got at least 2 compiler streams worth of stuff. Easy things on this piece of paper. But there might also be a game stream today. What is my opinion on some languages equating error handling code to code smell? So first of all, my opinion is that people who say code smell probably aren't, I don't know, like that's a very new term, and the people I've seen using it are not the people I think are good programmers. Broadly speaking, I don't, I haven't seen it that much yet. So any particular case, your mileage may vary. Um, Like there's in general some idea that people learn in school about what good code is that is really different from the actuality of what good code is, which is what I mean by that, right? So some people will look at some code and say, oh, that's terrible, when actually it's really good, right? So there's that whole phenomenon. So with regard to error handling code, well, if procedures that you call may fail. So first of all, this is a multi-dimensional thing, right? So first of all, there have been really bad programming styles encouraged by people. For example, certain object-oriented styles, but not only, that encourage you to make everything return a failure code, and then people, or be able to signal an error in some way, whatever that mechanism is, and then you never know what can fail. So that's terrible. That'll result in a lot of error handling code, but it's terrible because really if you're designing an API, you should design it to fail as little as possible and to have as few, weird states that people have to deal with as possible. So from that standpoint, if you're dealing with, well, from that standpoint, if there's a lot of error handling code in an application, it's bad, but it may not be the application's fault, right? It may be that the APIs it's using are poorly designed. Okay, first of all. Secondly, though, to the extent that things really can fail, like I'm calling some operating system function and like I'm communicating with a process and that process may get killed out from under me or whatever. Name your random thing that you actually have to handle. I'm rendering on the GPU and the GPU memory got reset by the operating system, whatever. Then handling that correctly is actually a core part of the functionality of your program, okay? That is your program's job. And so that code should be explicit because it has to be understood and maintained by anybody who works on the program. That's not code smell, that's good code, okay? So, code that says, oh, if the error from, we were waiting on this socket and we see a certain error code, and if we get this one, then we have to tell the rest of our program in some way that the input that we received off that socket may be incomplete. That's good code. That's not bad code, right? You don't want to hide error handling that is part of the job of your program. That's obfuscation. That's code obfuscation. And so that's one reason why I don't think half these people, more than half, 90% of these people have no idea what they're talking about. Like 90% of these people giving you advice how to write programs to just shut up, sit down for 10 years, stop reading Hacker News, stop reading Facebook on their phone, and just program hard on serious, ambitious things for 10 years, and then come back and have an opinion how to program, all right? So, yeah. My starting soon is message is no longer a screen from the presentation software. Yeah, I should start that up again. I don't know. It's just so easy to be lazy and type it in Emacs because Emacs is always open, whereas I have to go run the program otherwise. You've heard people say that if a function is more than 100 lines long, you're writing bad code. Those people do not know what they are talking about. In fact, there are several very obvious problems with what they are saying that those people are not experienced enough to caveat when they say that, and so you can disregard their advice completely. Sorry. That's just how that is. Like there are certain people, they say stuff and you're like, okay, well, I know you haven't done a certain kind of work or a certain magnitude of work because there's an obvious thing that if you had, you would have certain things to say about it. It's so bad. Like be careful who you take advice from. Be very careful who you take advice from. Most of it is not helpful, and a certain percentage of it is actively damaging. How much of my puzzle creation process is playtesting by other people? Very little, very little. Like percentage-wise, it's like 0.001% or something in terms of time. When you design a puzzle game, do you often send it to people to get feedback, or do I trust my own intuition? I mostly trust my own intuition. I don't really like feedback. I don't ask people for feedback. What I do sometimes when we do playtests, on the very, very, very rare occasion that we do that, it's more just like testing the ideas against reality. It's like making sure that what I think is going on or what I think is going to happen when people play this is not woefully wrong, right? Yeah, exactly. Dimitsuki says, I've never been actually confused by large functions, but have been confused by functions that call a billion functions and make me jump around, or if I don't even know where certain shit happens. Exactly, right? So if you have a 1,000-line procedure and you break it into 10 100-line procedures, now your call graph that the programmer has to understand has 10 extra things in it. And there's all these invisible connections that programmer has to make in their head in order to understand the program. Whereas if it's in a line, the program is mentally smaller. And that's really important, okay? Now, there are things that happen when code is in a line, like maybe there's a variable in scope for a really long time that shouldn't be because it doesn't mean anything anymore. But you can control that by having blocks interior to the thing. So, yeah, people who say that kind of stuff don't really know what they're talking about. They like maybe understand a little bit about how code gets complicated, but they haven't really thought about the problem. Yeah, leave the slideshow open always. Okay. You've only been programming for 2 years so far. You realize you're a pretty bad programmer, taking a lot of what you seriously, and you're making small improvements based on advice. Yeah, I mean, 2 years, programming is a complicated thing, and 2 years is not very much experience in the grand scheme of things. So it's good that you know that you're not that good yet. That's the correct attitude to have, right? The wrong attitude to have is this whole like thing that some people seem to have that prioritizes self-esteem at all costs. Like, good for you. You're just as good as everybody else because you learned to program last year or whatever. It's like, that's not helpful, right? Because if you want to get good at something that's really hard or really nuanced or that requires a lot of experience, then it takes time and effort, right? And so like this weird attitude that people have about programming, you know, where like people get mad at me if I say that somebody who's just learning to program probably shouldn't be writing production software because it's hard to do that. Like, apply that to anything, right? Like, oh, you just started to learn about building bridges last year, so let's have you architect the replacement for the Golden Gate Bridge that lots of cars are going to drive across every day. It's like, no, you don't do that, right? But people don't seem to have that attitude about programming, you know? Oh, you just took a sculpting class last year, so I guess you're just as good as, you know, any great Renaissance sculptor. You just like Rodin, right? Was he Renaissance? I don't know. I don't know my time frames. Anyway, it's not like that. So, you know, if you want to be the great sculptor, you have to understand where you are and know where you're trying to get, right? You have to look at other people's sculptures and say, why can't I do things like that yet? What do I need to learn and how do I need to be, right? That's the way to get good. And that's not what the common cultural rhetoric is right now. And that does a disservice to everybody who actually would like to be good at what they do. You try to divide code into independently meaningful units, not when it hits 100 lines. That is a better approach, right? Independently meaningful unit is a better approach, but there are a lot of scales at which you can assign meaning. My personal approach is I very rarely factor things into functions unless I have to, right? Or procedures, right? Most of the time, I only factor something out if two people need to call it. That's just how I do it. I minimize my call graph. Not all the time, but usually. What game do I plan on streaming? Oh, I meant programming the game stuff. I want to play some PUBG again sometime, but I don't know if that'll be today. How much of coding best practices are designed to make poor to passable programmers productive in large corporate environments, and do they work in that context? A lot of them are, and yes, they do work in that context. But the problem is, again, one of admitting what you're doing, right? So if you've got a set of programming best practices that is the equivalent of allowing people to work on an assembly line, you need to be clear that that's what that is, and that that's not the same as enabling someone to be massively productive in a solo scenario or a small group scenario, or enabling somebody to be a 10x programmer, or enabling someone to work on goals that are much more difficult than assembly line programmers are able to, right? Those are all things that people who want to be good programmers would like to be able to do. And most of those techniques actually actively hinder those things. So there's this great lack of clarity over what is actually happening, right? People pretend like there's a best way to program, right? And that's not true. Programming is a multi-dimensional space. There's a best way to go this kind of direction, and there's a best way to go that kind of direction, and there's a best way to go that kind of direction, but there's a lot of different directions. So you have to know what direction you're trying to go. And yeah. In your school, you have one rule, 80 characters per line, 25 lines per function. What do I think about it? It applies to CLang only. That's a terrible rule. None of my code, I would fail at your school, okay? Yeah, it's not 1970. I would drop out of your school, honestly. It's a bad school. Do I think that keywords to provide a way to define stack or heap allocation would be a good idea? Well, in this language, it's very clear when something is on the stack or the heap. So, I mean, obviously, I think that's a good idea. And I think it's bad to obfuscate memory allocation. Yeah. It is meant to teach you to write readable code, but that's not teaching you anything remotely like the right thing. Short code is not readable code. It's not the same thing, right? Like I said, a lot of projects are unreadable because you read this short snippet of code and you have no context for where it lives, under what conditions it gets called, what really it's trying to do, because you can't see it connecting to anything else, right? And you're being denied a certain skill of code literacy, which is being able to read a longer piece of code and visualize everything in context in your mind, right? Because if all you see is these short attention span, small snippets, it's like you only ever read not even a whole sentence. It's like you only ever read one phrase. And a sentence is too long to read at once, and especially a paragraph is too long to read at once. It's like you're not going to be able to read good novels like that. You're denying yourself the skill of being able to read properly. How detrimental would this phenomenon be to your work style? A program reaches an if clause and doesn't finish the positive branch nor the else branch and continues without any error. Found the bug within minutes with print statements, my JavaScript experience. That can't happen in any programming language I use. I mean, that could happen if you have something with exceptions, but then it wouldn't continue directly after the if either. It would like go to the nearest catch, right? That's why I don't use exceptions. Yeah, that sounds awful. How can you program under those conditions? Do I have an open source example that's similar to my coding style? No, but you can see my coding style every day here when I stream. Not every day. I don't really stream every day. I'm going through a streaming phase right now. What's my guideline of separating things into files? Yeah, I don't know. You know, like if you look at the file list here, let's do a fresh. I think this is still up to date, but let's see. If you look at the file list here, I have some really small files, but then I have some really big files, right? Like this is, 10,000 lines, this file, which would make most people freak out and go, oh my God, how can you possibly, that's such bad programming style. They have a 10,000 line file, and it's like, okay, let's see you write a compiler that does as much as this one, and we'll talk about whether you can even do that or not. Yeah. Like most people who have strong opinions about these things have not done very sophisticated tasks, right? And I don't wish to say that this is the only way to do it, to have that many lines or anything. I'm not even saying that this is optimal for my programming style. I've gone through several times of factoring things out of this bigger file and putting them into other files. So there's that. Like if I went through today and decided to factor this, I could probably find some things to take out of here. It just hasn't been a priority, and it hasn't been, it doesn't do anything to do that, right? So everything in this file is all generally doing one thing. Everything in this file is generally doing one thing. It's a big task that has a lot of code. So, that's how big those files are. And then down here, these are generally doing one thing. So, this is the non-header stuff for the array implementation. It's pretty small, right? Random number generator, it's pretty small. So that's just how I do it. And if the file is big, then the file is big. And if the file is small, then the file is small. It really bothers me. Like I try to go into the source code for something like LLVM or something, and most of the files are like 100 to 200 lines. And again, I can't get any context. Like it's very hard to understand. It takes a long time to compile, but it's also just very hard to understand. I don't know what I'm looking at, like ever. What are my thoughts on declarative programming? I don't like it. Not for the kind of programming that I do. For non-programmers doing domain-specific things, it might be a good way to do things. Maybe this is too philosophical, but how do you know what direction you want to go? For example, I feel myself pulled in many different directions and don't know what I should focus on. Well, that's part of life, is you got to figure out what you want to do. I mean, if that's working, if you're unhappy with that right now, then look at why you're unhappy and try to address that in some way, right? If you're happy with being pulled in all these different directions and seeing all these different possibilities, and working on things for a short amount of time, then maybe you just keep doing that until one of them sticks, right? If you're not happy with it, though, do some introspection on exactly the nature and cause of your unhappiness, because it's possible to get very specific about it and then to address whatever that very specific thing is. Am I still at ZBC? Yes. Honestly, it's a pretty good school in France, one of the best for IT. Do you mean that it has a good reputation, or that people that come out of there are actually good programmers who have done really good things in life, right? It doesn't sound like a very good school to me, honestly. But you've just said one anecdote, right? That certainly doesn't summarize an entire school. But come on. Come on. Limiting you to a VT100 screen worth of code per procedure, it makes no sense. I'll go even further. If I had to write this compiler under those constraints, it would be very difficult. I probably would not actually be able to make this compiler at all because it would be too hard. If I were able to make it, I wouldn't be as far along as I am. I would be, I don't know, half as far or less. Because it's hard. It's hard to structure real code under those constraints. Yeah. Haha, imagine a book where every other sentence was go to page 800 to read this sentence, and it should be easy to see why you shouldn't use that many functions. Exactly. Exactly. And that's not the only reason, right? It also makes your code take longer to compile and all sorts of things like that. It makes it take longer to link, probably makes your binary bigger. It stresses the optimizer more. But it's also the most important one. Yes, it's harder to read. How long should a prototype take to make? How are you doing it? A prototype of what? I mean, you have to specify what the job is. Right? A prototype of SpaceX's BFR takes a lot longer than a prototype of my Pong clone, right? Like, what are you asking? What do you think are the drawbacks of using Yak or Lex for parsing? Almost everything. I don't do it. Did I explain how strings are handled? A bunch of YouTube videos could probably give you the impression about that. Why is it called typer? Because it assigns types to nodes in the syntax tree. When reading through code, do you ever see a benefit in being able to skip large chunks to get to the section that you are looking for? If so, how do you manage that without factoring the code out into procedures? Well, there's a lot of ways. So first of all, in Visual Studio, you skip down a page, you skip up a page. Like, what's so hard about that? Secondly, I don't use this, but a lot of IDEs now, like, have this scope collapse, right? I can collapse that scope and see what's after it, right? I can collapse this scope. Again, like I said, I don't use it, but most modern programming environments do this. So I don't understand the question. I don't understand how changing the structure of your program is supposed to help with that anyway, because how do you know what the next procedure is called? You're just going to have to flip down pages until you find it anyway. Like, you hope I don't burn out on the streaming. I hope I still stream once or twice a week. Yeah, we'll see. I just do it when I'm going to have fun doing it. If I stop having fun doing it, I will stop doing it. Did I explain how strange? That's a question. You've heard me say that I don't like Emacs, but I see you use expertly flying around the code. What don't I like about it? Well, I don't actually use very many Emacs features, so I don't use it expertly, to be honest. Like, I don't even know there's common things that I want to do that I don't even know how to do because I haven't had the patience to remember and look it up all the time. Like often I'll have something in my cut buffer and I want to go delete a line and put a new thing there, and deleting a section, and deleting the section replaces my cut buffer, and you're supposed to be able to like pop that off and get to the next thing, and I never remember how to do it. The reasons I don't like Emacs: number one, it's programmed in a very terrible Lisp dialect that is hard to understand and hard to use and hard to get information about how to use. And I'm long past the time when I was an undergraduate that I had a patience to fiddle with something like that, right? So I don't ever want, like, one of the points of Emacs is you're supposed to be able to program it to do whatever you want. And I just no longer want to do that because it's so painful to try to program Emacs, right? I would like an editor that was extendable in a regular programming language that I like to use. For example, well, I don't really like to use C++, but ForCoder is programmable in C or C++. I would use that. I was using an editor that uses my new language, right? But this whole eLisp thing is just a garbage pile, trash fire situation. It's bad, right? The performance of Emacs is quite bad, right? I have a supercomputer right here compared to what I had in college. Sometimes I'm typing and Emacs still freezes up for half a second, right? Some stuff is really slow. So like, if I'm in a bigger file, sometimes I'll, indent some C code, auto indent it, and it just lags out. It just feels crappy. I don't know. That's most of it. Like, it's just, and it just feels like it's frozen in 1985. Let me modify that. It feels like it's frozen in 1993. It feels like, Emacs feels like it hit the limit of what open source software is able to do, starting with this thesis, this problem statement, right? So it just has to be started over, right? I don't know. Like every new release of Emacs doesn't really get better. It hasn't gotten better in a long time. It's just the same thing with minor changes. Like, read the change lists for Emacs. They're real bad. It's just a dead editor at this point. So the main reason I don't switch to anything else, there's a couple of reasons. One is a lot of new editors are terrible, right? Like some of these things written in JavaScript or whatever, you press a key and it's like 150 milliseconds before you see the keystroke. I can't work under those conditions, right? But the other main reason is just switching cost. Like, I have my keybinds that I know that are set up, and to use a new editor, I would either have to spend the time configuring it so that it mostly works the same, which in reality never quite happens, or I just have to learn the new keybinds. And I'm just, I'm very productive right now in my current situation, and I don't want to take that hit from switching. But I will at some point. Like, I'll switch to ForCoder or something else because Emacs is just not good. Did I use STB TrueType in the witness? No, we used FreeType in the witness. I think STB TrueType wasn't ready, or we worried that it might be a little slow or something. I don't know. We already had FreeType set up in the engine from Braid, so switching to STB TrueType would have involved a switching cost that it was like, why pay that? Thanks for doing this project. You are welcome. Are there any potential uses for neural networks in making a compiler? Yes. The one that I have thought about that's most obvious is for coaching the optimizer to know what is a fruitful transformation to do on your code, right? You don't want the neural network to actually output the optimized code. That would be a train wreck. But you want it to pick the strategy that the optimizer should try at a given time, right? I think that could speed up optimizers by a great deal. The other thing they could do is help with error messages, right? Like if there's something wrong in the code, maybe help generate a better explanation for what you did that caused this problem. Like if there's a parse error or a type checking error. Why are C++ linkers so slow? I do not know. There's a few things. So part of it is header files, right? So I wish I had this link, but if you read about how header files work in C++, in order to make data structures visible in the debugger, if those data structures are visible in header files, because you're compiling one C file at a time, you don't know if that data structure is going to show up in any of the other C files, right? You might be the only C file that includes that header. So every C file has to include debug info for all of the data structures that it sees. But most of those are massively redundant, right? Because many header files get included everywhere. So then the linker has to do all this deduplication of that debug info. However, I mean, that's one thing the linker does that is stupid and a waste of time, that's based on the header file model. But we don't have header files here, and the linker is still way too slow. So that is not the only issue. Sort of off topic, but I've been wanting to do everything in my power to prolong the health of my joints and reduce the strain of programming has on your physical body. Am I still using a Kinesis Advantage 2 keyboard? No, I haven't used that in like 10 years, 7 years. I use standard style. I'll show you what I use. I use keyboards that look like this in general. So it doesn't have the numpad on the right. And the reason for that is because I want to have my mouse, I don't want to move my hand that far when I go from typing to mousing. So the mouse lives over here. Is this in frame? Let's see. Yeah, so the mouse lives over here and the keyboard lives over here, right? I don't use a numeric keypad. I have switches with nice, good tactile feedback, so I don't have to press too hard because it's very easy for me to know when the key has registered. Right? So one important thing about working on a computer is to be relaxed. If you're stressed, if you're tense, you're gonna, like if your wrists are tense and your hands are tense, you're putting a lot more stress on all these things, like your tendons and whatnot. You don't want that. You want to be relaxed. I found that matters a lot more than weird shapes of the keyboard and stuff. Although those probably help. The reason I don't use weird stuff like the Kinesis Advantage anymore is that the switching cost between that and going to not that keyboard was too high. Like, it just took, my brain didn't like switching back and forth between that and a laptop keyboard, for example. I would be bad at typing at both if I switched back and forth every day. Maybe if I did it for long enough, I would get good at it. Like, the human brain is good at adapting, so maybe. But there were other problems with that keyboard. Like, it wasn't a very reality-based keyboard. Like, the delete key was in a really weird place, and I don't know. What is the lowest amount of budget a 2D game needs for success? Making a game is not simple You know it very well. Um, I don't think there is any budget level per se. So, for example, a very, very successful 2D game recently was Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. That was a tremendously successful game. I don't think it cost him very much at all. It's I don't know how much he spent on it, but it was not very much. Any reason I don't switch to Vim? Why would I? Why would I? What do I think about Go? I've ranted about Go before. Sublime is calling you. No, it isn't. You've tried to use FreeType, but you can't get the baseline like in STB font. I'm pretty sure you can. It's just the documentation is leaves some things to be desired. I've been confused by it several times. Does STB TrueType handle Arabic and other complex glyphs? I am not sure. So this specific keyboard, I forget what model this is. This is a Razer Black Widow Tournament Edition 2014, which I probably bought, a year ago. They were still selling it, even though it's Tournament Edition 2014. You might be able to still get this. It's not the only good keyboard. There's lots of keyboards like this that are perfectly fine. This one is stupid and annoying because it was this time when Razer decided to put the punctuation on the numbers like below the number instead of above it. They did it on the laptop too. It's freaking dumb. And maybe the USB cable comes out very easily. But let me see if they still have this on Amazon. It's a dumb name too. Razer Black Widow Tournament Edition. They have a lot of Black Widow Tournament editions. They have this Chroma one, which is the new one that makes the colors light up. I don't particularly care about that. This one is not the one. I have the 2014. Yeah, some people still sell this. This one is different. This one has colors on the keys, and mine are black and white. Did they stop doing the stupid punctuation thing? I have to see. Nope, they still put it under the number. It's so dumb. Why do they do that? Is it because I feel like it's to appeal in Asia or something? Because Chinese and Japanese keyboards tend to put the modifiers like under the letter there. But maybe that's not the reason. Maybe it's just a stupid style thing. But I always find myself confused when I want to look at those because I still don't totally touch type those punctuations because they change so much from keyboard to keyboard. I don't know. I wish they would change it back. It's dumb. So, these keyboards tend to be not super cheap. They're not $10 keyboards. They're these Black Widow keyboards. It looks like, depending on which one you get, it's between $70 and $120. But if you're a professional programmer and you want to stay healthy and not injure yourself typing, it's worth a lot more money than that to have a good keyboard. So You think it is for the LEDs that are above the switch. This one doesn't have LEDs, but I could see how if they have an LED edition and a non-LED edition and they wanted them to be vaguely similar, that they might do that. You think the main key is displayed at the top of the key, so the alternate character is underneath. Yeah, I know, but that flies in the face of like 100 years of typewriter keyboards. So why change it? I got a mechanical keyboard because you heard me talking about switches on a PUBG stream with some other programmers. It's made a massive difference to your ergonomics compared with the keyboards you used to use. Thanks for that. Right on. Okay. I'm going to get some more tea and we will start programming instead of this question and answer nonsense. Okay, people. Yes, that keyboard information is wrong. I was using that Leopold keyboard until last week or something. Okay. I want to close the chapter on a few of the things that I've been doing lately. Over the past couple days, we did some stuff about putting more lexical information into error messages so that, which one? I don't know. Let's just go to bug 79. And we'll make an error. Right. So now, well, that's not a very informative. Let's like put it up here. So it's in the middle of more code. Oh, that's polymorphic, so nobody uses it. All right. Okay. So, you know, we give you some lines of context about where the error is. We now know the beginning and the end of the range containing the error, and so that's good, right? But we only know that for leaf items. So if I have a procedure call, like, actually, this might just give me the argument, undeclared identifier F. Yeah. So in this case, we're complaining about a procedure call, and then we're talking about the overloads, right? So when we're complaining about the procedure call, we still don't have a good location for it. We're just giving this weird thing because aggregate, like tree style things, do not have good ranges. So I want to make that work for certain specific cases, like procedure call, and let me write these down. Procedure call. We'll make sure the errors are really good for very common things. We already tested unary and binary operators. That's fine. Declarations. Oh, and that semicolon error that we worked on yesterday, was that when it was? Gives you the wrong place. It gives you the token after where the semicolon goes, which is not good. So let's say better semicolon error. And that is going to require knowing the full range of the declaration, because you want to say, oh, the error is in the last token of the declaration. Let's do that one first. Actually, you kind of can't do it first independently, because it's going to, in many cases, require, because when the declaration has an expression, the way you get the last character of the declaration is by copying it from the expression. And if the expression isn't correct, then the declaration won't be correct. But no matter, we're just going to do it. Parser. So when we parse a declaration, we do all this stuff. Okay, so if we have an identifier, then we want to put the left-hand side of the declaration where the identifier is. And again, this L0 and C0 are the initial line and initial character, right? Otherwise, we need to do this. I should just name these L0 and C0. I'm going to write down rename character index whatever. This is just better. It'll remove confusion to not have different names, even though it makes it more cryptic. Like more cryptic is less cryptic sometimes. Okay. So the declaration will start either at the start of the name or at whatever is the next thing after the name. And then we go parse some things. Okay. So either for a declaration, we either have an expression or a type instantiation, or an identifier, or set right-hand thing of declaration. If expr, else it right-hand extent, lexical extent. That's some fancy sounding words. Lexical extent is the name of my new band. Okay. If expr result L1 is expr L1, result C1 is expr C1. Result type inst. I guess this is just ident. Wait. Do we assign ident? Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Result identifier Okay, great. Let's just compile that. It's not called line index start. See, this is why I need to rename these. What's it called? Line number start. You know what? We're going to take care of this right now. Character, it's line number and character index. All right, we're burning this with fire right now. As soon as we compile, we'll just make sure we run. Okay, we're not even going to test this yet. Replace in files. Line number start with L0. I better not screw this up. 14. Line number end with L1. Character index start with C0. Character index end with C1. Hope I didn't screw that up. Let's just check that in because that's a big edit. Like, yeah. Okay. So let's test our semicolon situation here. Oh, no, we have to actually do that. Missing semicolon expected after a declaration. Okay. Is that the only time we have that? Semicolon expect. Okay. So where do we say this? We're going to say if we have a valid last character for the declaration, then we'll make a dummy token and highlight that. Otherwise, we'll just do what we are doing. Yes. Okay, so if result L1 is greater than or equal to 0, else we do what we did before. Asked dummy dot L0 is result L1. Dummy dot C0 is result C1 minus 1. Dummy dot L1 is result L1. Dummy dot C1 is result. Oh no, look at all this error handling code smell. Just don't even pay attention to those people, right? So for example, we're handling an error here, but this is the user interface to the compiler. This is the thing that makes the compiler good for people to use. One of the things, right? This is part of the job of the compiler, right? It's not code smell. Whatever even code smell means. Like, it's just such a... All right. Semicolon expected after a declaration. All right, so let's see if that actually does what we think it does. Why did I commit my changes to bug 179? Because I wasn't paying attention. It's fine. We'll uncommit that. We're going to use this for a little bit. Okay, that's not what we want to test right now. We want to test declarations. So I'm going to say numbers is an enum 1, 2, 3, right? So let's do that. And then we say x is 1, y is 2, z is 3, and now, there we go. Semicolon expected after a declaration, and it's not better. So when we parsed that declaration, we didn't, well, we supposedly did that up here. We should have an expr. Let's find out. Debug build. Oh, we weren't compiling debug build. We were compiling release build because we went and tested. So even just this simple complication, it's a useful complication to have separate debug and release builds, but man, it causes some significant confusion. There we go. I'm not sure I like that. Like, maybe we just want the caret. Like, this is better because it actually tells you where the semicolon's missing, right? If we had several new lines between this line and that line, then this is really not helpful. This is better. But it's weird. Abstract smell tree. Have I ever tried any IDE by JetBrains? No, I have not. Add a semicolon after it. I would rather not because that might get confusing. Like, I would rather just print out here what your code actually says. Yeah, if you're considering the caret, just offset it 1 to the right. I think I will do that. So, and I think I get the caret if my extent is 0. Actually, I can do this. I can do this and this, right? I think that'll give me the caret. Oh, I gotta recompile. I won't get the caret till I recompile. That's pretty good. I mean, I could see making the caret red or something, but I don't know. Maybe red is reserved for your actual code as well. It's hard to say. You'd make it red since it's occupying the line below. Make it yellow. Yellow? This is not one of these fruit salad compilers that outputs a ton of colors. I mean, even this is super annoying. Like, come on. Like, what? Who decided to print all this redundant information and put it in two totally random separate colors? It's bad aesthetic sense. What if your console has a red background? Then you can't program, sorry. Does the compiler allow for easy internationalization of error messages? Not yet, but we will. That will be one of the things we do when we ship it for real. Add a red block where the semicolon should be. I don't know. What I'm going to do is file this away mentally as I'm going to make the caret red for now. And then I'm going to file ideas like put a red block where the semicolon would go and stuff as maybe we should do that. Maybe not. Let's see if other errors come up with that kind of a case. So let's make the caret red. How did we call this? Highlight. There we go. Okay. Now, we are not yet done, however, because we are copying incorrect information for the declaration in some cases. Because remember, the positions for something like a unary or binary operator is the position of the operator, not the rightmost extent. So the thing that I did is not good. Well, it's not complete, let's say. So for example, actually, let's go to our repro. Is it 179? Yeah. So if we do this, 2 plus 5, right, it's going to say the plus, which is not good. That's like, oh, come on, man. What are you talking about? So really what we want to do is the following. Lexical extent, expert to result. And then for identifiers, we just know what the rightmost lexical extent is. So why can't I type today? Copyright most lexical extent. Switch source arrow type. Do some stuff. The default colon because we're in C++. Break. We got to break all the time because we're in C++. Okay. That. If it's a case asked operator expression, auto op is static cast asked operator expression. Return copyright most lexical extents op dest op right, not hop. That's an infinite loop. Op right. Oh, not return. Just copy that and return. Okay. Well, that's probably all the known cases right now. Oh, I got to close that. If it's a type instantiation, we'll deal with that during parsing. Yeah. Okay. So this is, this is still not going to be right in 100% of cases because a lot of expression types don't set their rightmost thing yet. Not op. Not op. Source. Come on, bruh. What you doing? Okay, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Well, why are you so slow at... Wait, what is happening? All right, so result arrow S is this. So many bugs in this thing. It's embarrassing. In Visual Studio, I mean. Copy. Oh, fiddlesticks. That's what happened. I hope somebody caught that on the stream. There we go. Okay, now something that is not going to be there is procedure call. right? So if we go foo of that, we don't have it. So procedure call is very common. So let's do that right now. I wonder if there's a catch-all way to do the other expressions. Probably not. It's very sad. It's going to have to do this on a case-by-case basis. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few of the common ones like this. And then maybe we assert in the messenger. And that'll force us to just deal. That's going to be brutal and grindy and annoying, but it's better than having weird stuff hanging around forever that's not implemented. But let's do this. Procedure calls are easy. So we're going to make the first thing be result. That's it. Really? Yeah, nobody else calls that. Well, you know what I say. Look at how much simpler that's going to make our code. All right. So I'm going to have expect and eat take an optional argument of the rightmost. I may regret this, but yeah. It's a bad name for that, but okay. So that should give us procedure call. Expect and eat. Oh, I forgot to default it. No, my variables are different names. I hope somebody caught that. I was thinking it and then I didn't do it. Did I declare that locally? I'm pretty sure I did. Really, I'm just doing this so I can copy and paste it instead of typing it, even though that would have been, typing it would have been much faster. What's a good thing? No. All right. All right. Could have made an alias for this, but someone's stupid car alarm is going off. Okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. Gee, I'm sure glad you have that car alarm. That sure stopped a thief right there. Break names from expressions is not found. This is the stupid part of C++. Let's juggle our stuff around because we have nothing better to do. Nothing better to do. Nothing better to do. Am I near you or psychic? What with the car alarm? It is not my car. I'll tell you that. Hey, there we go. Okay. So let's commit this. This is good progress. I hate programs like that. Well, we should test. Let's be responsible people and test. It's quite possible that we did something bad. Why is this message sometimes blue and sometimes white? It's a good point. It turned blue after we did the caret because I've put the wrong thing, right? Once we started making the caret red, I said normal instead of reset. So I should go, thank you for catching that. Normal would be if we were printing more code, but we are not. We just built the release builds. That's why. Release. There we go. So much better. All right. Build Sokoban. Build Sokoban with x64. So much faster. Yeah, our front end time didn't go up appreciably. Although I don't know, we're not really posting any 1.03s here. But it's not our fault. Front end time is low. Okay. And then what? Run tests, that's what. Let's look at those things that it generated there because those are different from before, I think. Type is not needed for loan identifiers. Yeah, that's something we could do better. But we don't care about that. $sign is not required on struct arguments. That one we could do better. I mean, yeah. Procedure is deprecated. That's weird. I'm going to check this in and then we'll improve each of these cases. All right. Let me get a snack. I'm out of chips. You know what? We've been good this week. We've been really cranking. We've been owning. So I think a cupcake for breakfast is really warranted. You know what I'm saying? I think that's where we're at. Cupcake for breakfast. I'm also making some hot tea to go with the cupcake, but that's going to take a second. Did I really spell carrot wrong? I did. Wow. That's embarrassing. Easily fixed. Why would I profile the linker? It's not my linker. I don't have it. I can't make it faster. Why are you asking me to profile the linker? I can't do anything about it. All I can do is not use it. A strange game. The only way to win is not to play. Someone is seriously asking, isn't tea usually hot? You must be from Europe, where they don't have real iced tea. In America, when you go to a restaurant and ask for an iced tea, they don't give you this bottle of Lipton bull crap. They give you real iced tea. Will the Witness engine go to waste since you're developing a new engine? No, it will not. No, it will not. When are you going to team up with Bjarne Strostrup? Never. When you want perf and see something that takes 50% of the time, it becomes your priority. That's fine. It's true, but I just have things in a different priority. Like I would like the language to be feature complete. That's a pretty good idea. We're already several times faster than anyone else. So whereas we will get much faster later, we're okay for now. Like I was reading this compiler performance thread yesterday about someone who has a large project. And I think this is when they rewrote the compiler in Go 1.5 or whatever. It got like 3 times slower because of the garbage collector, even though nobody will ever admit that garbage collection is bad. Man, I kind of burned my arm when I got tea. It was bad news. And where's the ridiculous quotes? Rob Pike says, I wish the compilation were much faster too and have been on the record about that. Still, if 2 minutes is an unmanageable build time, you live a blessed existence. So Rob Pike thinks 2 minutes is okay, right? I mean, it's a large repository of code, so, you know. But then later, he says, I mean, I haven't run any Go things, but he's like, unedited program of a few tens of thousands of lines. So like half the size of the Sokoban game or less, right? Maybe 1/3. It's unclear if he's counting, comments and new lines or not. 5 seconds to compile something half the size of Sokoban. So that's like 10 times slower than our compiler right now, with half of our compiler spending time waiting for the linker. So it's just like, we're okay. We're doing okay for now. We're going to get faster. We're doing okay. Does anyone, okay, so if it got better since 2016, does anyone have new numbers for how fast Go is? Because it would be good to have competition, right? It would be good to be like, oh, Go is a little bit faster. We have to actually speed up, because without that, maybe I'll just be lazy forever. Done burned my hand. When was the last time I wrote Go code? I have never written Go code. I burned my hand on the blazing fast compilation times. This is not that fast. So if I just sat down and worked for, I don't know, let's say 3 months just on making the compiler fast, it would probably be at least 6 to 8 times faster than it is today, right? So we compile Sokoban in about 1.1 seconds. We would be compiling it in about, well, whatever 1.1 over 8 is, right? So like 0.17 seconds. That would happen. That would be a really good demo. It's just I don't want to stop the world in order to do that. What makes my compiler so much faster? Because we don't buy into all this untrue rhetoric about certain kinds of abstraction that, like, everybody says, oh, do this, it doesn't make your code any slower and it's more whatever, better style or whatever. Not true. Oh, just use garbage collector, you only pay like 5% and you get memory safety. Not true. None of it's true. But people don't empirically test their claims. And all that happens is just software gets slower and slower every year, and nobody cares enough to stop and ask why. So it's embarrassing. It is a globally embarrassing situation, right? And Go is the fast compiler, right? Everybody thinks of that as the programming language that compiles fast. Is it possible to abuse specific features that will end up making a program that will compile slow? Yes, it is. I think at some point we will also provide some metrics in the output that you could turn on that'll tell you which files are taking a long time, so that you could help understand if you're doing that. Can you defend Golang a little and tell why it's slow in those cases? Sure. Go ahead. I mean, I'm not even interested in specific cases. This is just the thread that I found about this. I'm not really well educated about Go performance, broadly speaking. So if someone can point me at a good general benchmark, because I'm sure there is one, I would appreciate it. It's just hard to find things on the web these days. And also, to be fair, my comments about the way code is written do not necessarily apply to Go, except for the garbage collector thing. They drank the garbage collector Kool-Aid, which might be the right thing for them to do in their situation because their language has a very specific use case. But just acknowledge how much performance you're paying for that when you do that. So 1 million lines of code was one of the things that Ginger Bill just said, right? Let's make sure we type this. 1000000. In 2 minutes, I assume you're talking about this thread. So 2 minutes is 120 seconds. That's 8,000 lines per second, right? Sokoban is 70,000 lines and we compile it in 1 second. So the 1 million lines of code is not really an excuse, right? That, you can just factor that out of the explanation. Garbage collection enabled, okay. Maybe you should disable that during compilation, but that means you're not really reclaiming memory, which may be a problem in some contexts. But also, if you have to do that, then just don't, like one thing I've seen from the Go community is all this rhetoric about how the garbage collector is not slow and how you're dumb if you don't use one. You can't say that and at the same time say like, well, your compiler is slow because you didn't turn off garbage collection, right? So just, I'm fine with saying that you should do that if they admit the speed of the feature, right? SSA optimizer, okay, but can't you turn that off and generate a debug build? Like, what's the deal there? Does it not give you an option to have a debug build or what? The GC is slow because they use a stop the world style one. I do think the idea to use GC made sense. Okay, so here's the thing. Stop the world GCs, I believe in general, are faster in aggregate. So if you add up the full batch time, like you would for something like a big compiler, stop the world is easier to implement because you don't pay overhead all the time, right? Or not easier to implement. The overall performance cost is less. The more asynchronous your garbage collector is, the more bookkeeping it has to do in order to enable that asynchrony, right? And you pay a price for that bookkeeping. So, yeah. There is no debug build, everything's released. Well, that's contemptuous. That comparison is not really fair. It could be very well be that we don't scale well to 1 million lines of code. There's no good technical reason why we wouldn't. And if we had something that didn't scale, I would fix it. Just like, was it this week or last week when I did the scope optimization? We had something, it was a temporary thing that didn't scale to large namespaces. I fixed it, now we're fast, right? So, but I agree that it's not an apples to apples comparison, which is why I would like to see a general compiler benchmark. So like Go compiler benchmark 2018 for the perf dashboard. This is like, I don't even know. I just want to see a graph that tells me how many lines of code. I have no idea what I'm looking at here. Fucking GitHub. Like, I just want to know. I want to know how long it takes to compile. How many lines of code per second can the Golang compiler do? How does Go compile so quickly? I want to see what numbers they think is so quickly. Why is it so hard? It didn't used to be this hard to find things on the internet. If you have a hash table with functions, then lookup in such table gets slower the more functions you have. What? What are you talking about? Do you know how hash tables work? Bro. Do compile times grow linearly as number of lines increase? That is the hope, that they're approximately linear, right? Linear is the best you can do. And so we're aiming for that, yes. Try Alta Vista. Yeah, let's try, is Lycos still around? Hey, it probably just is a front end to Google. Golang compiler benchmark. Compiler speed. Compiling the whole standard library in 10 seconds is quite impressive. I just can't find any numbers. Oh, someone linked me a thing. Computer language benchmarks games. This is not how long to compile. This is running the benchmark. Okay, I have now wasted 10 to 15 minutes of my time trying to find information I cannot find. See the Imgur. Comparing compilation time of random code. I could, yeah, compilation time is a very specific phrase that I could search for. What? Oh, I see. Okay. Why is rust a horizontal line at the bottom? All right. D-opt. Why is D-opt faster? It's weird. Pascal. Rust. Go. They're all slower than C++? Bro. Now, functions is a useless... I want to know lines of code. Example function of about 5 to 20 lines each. So let's call it 15 lines each. So 1,500 lines of code. Well, let's do 1,000 lines of code. Is around the 70 mark. Really? It can't be that slow. 1,000 lines of code in 0.7 seconds? I don't know. Random information off the web. How is lines of code a more useful metric than functions? Because if you look at my code, I will have a function that's 10,000 lines long. Not 10,000, but like several thousand, sure. Anyway, I tried finding the information and I was not able to. So maybe again later. Let's search for Golang compilation time. We still get how does Go compile so quickly is the top answer. Long time to compile is the second answer. Faster Golang builds. I just want to... Oh, this is someone linking that same article. I just want numbers. Like nobody, there seems to be so little actual interest in this to be technical about it. Yeah, Go seems to just be getting slower over time. Like that one post that I was looking at before was about 1.5, so it's just getting slower, which is a bummer. I don't know. I don't think, like, this just proves to me everybody's a damn joker. That's what I think. The functions are probably all between 7 to 9. Golang slow compiler. I just want to know the numbers. I just want to see lines of code per second, and I can't find it. So, very sad. All right. Very sad. Let's do some work. So I was going to improve at least these two error messages, even though this one is not. We'll do it. Parser.cpp. My goal here is not necessarily even to make sure these messages are good right now. It's to start using the lexical range information that we added enough that I have a good feel for what the issues are. Okay, so this is kind of dumb, but whatever. Let's just see if that's good enough. Oh, God. Report info doesn't have an overload for that. Remember when I was complaining how many overloads of these there were? I may just be about to add another overload of these. Seems that this old source claims 18K lines per second. That's not very fast. But that probably includes optimization. I don't know. And does that include new lines and whatnot? So people say Go has gotten slower and slower since then, but it's also a much slower computer because it's 2009. So it's hard to know what this means today. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to compare that to anything meaningful today. 2009 is a long time ago. Yeah, so the old Go compiler, before they rewrite it in Go, didn't have a garbage collector, and it was a lot faster by default. So, yeah, I agree that there's not anything in the language design of Go. I mean, I don't know the language super well, but there's nothing in the design that inherently makes it slow to compile, as far as I know. All right. Anyway, I don't have an overload for this. Okay, I'm going to make a new thing, and we're going to migrate everything over to this eventually. This is my strategy on getting rid of some of these. Okay. Report type, report type. Enum report type, report info 0, report errors 1, put warning, error 2. Okay, so we have that. Well, what? Am I forgetting my C++ compiler settings? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Why do... Okay. These are for user-facing stuff. And these are for compiler stuff. Okay, I want these to be the convenient names because these are the ones that I'm using everywhere. So I'm going to name them this for now. I'm going to name these options or what is this called here? Does anyone use these? I think that's old and nobody uses them. All right. Let's just see who breaks. Oh. Oh, we do use those. Okay. I should have looked at my own internals before this. So we're good. I don't know why these are in compiler settings. I mean, I kind of do because they want to get all the way out to the user level eventually. They just don't yet. Okay, so this is what happens when you switch languages all the time. If you want to learn a programming language to be better prepared, what should you learn? C, maybe C. Do we have default arguments? Yes. Apparently the Go standard library is 300k lines and takes 10 seconds to compile in 2016, so it's 30k lines per second in 2015. But that's also before the compiler got slower, I think. But yeah. It would be interesting to see modern numbers. Modern numbers. Is it possible to use LLVM to compile Sokoban to Go? Not really. No. We mentioned we may do a talk at GDC sometime. We're not going to do that, but I am going to give an update on this programming language in Barcelona next month. Or at the end of this month, actually. Damn. Time is flying. Yeah. So that'll be a good time. Well, you know, we compile Sokoban in about 1 second. I mean, we're still held back by the linker. We're about 1.1 seconds for Sokoban, so it's about 70,000 lines a second, but that counts blank lines and comments. Even if we didn't count blank lines and comments, that would be way more than 30K per second. But that Go number is also a few years ago, right? And so computers are faster, but the compiler might be slower. It's not a good comparison. You need to like get a fresh comparison on known hardware. But also, you know, like I said, our compiler will get faster. Maybe, I want to do a stream sometime soon where I try to just output an exe file from our code. It won't yet try to be the exe file that outputs all of Sokoban, but I want to write out a simple one that'll just like, print hello sailor or something like that. Just as the first step of skipping around the linker. Would it be possible to write a garbage collector in the meta program? I think so. It would be a pretty involved thing to do, but you may be able to do it. Okay. Let me just do this thing that I was doing here. Let's just do this thing. Unresolved external symbol report, because I added that new thing. Okay. Basically, we already had this layer of indirection 1 down, and all these procedures are just marshalling to that. But aside from report error, it's probably better just to not have so many overloads. Okay. So this is the great thing about C++. What line was this? I don't know. We just called that overload of report. Where was it? It was in not required. Yeah. Good thing I remembered that, because the compiler ain't going to help me. Okay. Is not required on struct arguments. Struct arguments are always evaluated at compile time. So we've got this. We've got a version of report error. And you know what? Because we don't have that many calls to report warning, I'm maybe going to convert those. Huh, okay. See, this is much better. There we go. Check it out. We got our $sign highlighted. How great is that? $sign is not required to instruct arguments. Boom. Boom. Okay. I want to check that in just because I'm about to do a thing. Improved error message involving $sign. Let's make bug 179 work. Well, we'll do it separately. Actually, since we're being responsible, we should run this while we're coming over here. Let's make sure bug 179. Let's just clean this up because people are going to use this later. Okay. How did our test go? That was good. Run tests. Wait, what? What is going on? Did compilation fail? Oh, incompatible in test that the LLVM backend is breaking. Delete and rebuild. Why is it incrementally? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just failing every time. See, this is why incremental stuff is bad. Like, we need to get that out of there. Okay. Commit. Make bug 179. Compile again. Okay, so I want to at least start on reducing my number of dumb overloads here. So I think I said before that report warning does not have that many calls to it. And in fact, some of these, I'm going to migrate many of these to report, right? Actually, and let's just do it. I don't think we have that many of this. So let's just try deleting that. So we definitely have a couple at least, but we're just going to change it to report. Interp report. That's such a snooty error message. Wrong key bindings memorized. Not rapport, not rapport. Yeah, there aren't that many. I love when Linux people come onto my stream and tell me how great Linux is for games. Ha, 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 ha. Please refer that person to my previous rant where I looked at the Linux distro tree on Wikipedia. Okay. Okay, we compile. That's good. Let's get rid of another one before we even test. This one we probably don't use very much. Well, let's get rid of this one also. Okay, this is another like Lexer one. So this version is when token is null. So we can say we can just call this one. And we say if token, else like that. So there's probably not too many of those. Oh, maybe there are. I don't know. Let's find out. More than I would like. Yeah. All right, let's go to the Lexer. Okay. Report error is report. Okay, so that's the bulk of it. And now report error this, report error this null. Okay. Okay. This is when we did have tokens. All right. Parser. It's not as many as it looks like because there's like 2 errors per for some reason. Oh, one of them's a note. One of them's a note. Report report error Lexer null quote. No, don't ever do that. Once in a while, Emacs inserts a control M randomly into a file. That's another great bug that didn't used to happen. Now it just happens sometimes. Emacs just puts a control M in. Why? We don't know. We don't care. Okay. Lines of code are creeping slowly upward. All right. That goes, and that goes. Okay, I'm going to say cut down on number of overloads to interp report error. Well, it's not really, not 100% accurate message, but whatever. So do we want to get rid of some other ones right now? Report warning with Lexer. Let's get rid of that one. Not very much usage. All right, that was a good choice. Oh, what not to do? There. God, it's so slow. Compiling C++ is so slow. How about this one? This one is interesting. No, you know this one. report error, just char star message is going to use the, let's see what it does. We just set line and character to 0. When there is no context at all. Okay, we do use that a lot. Let me not mess with that right now. Okay, because we may want to do something special here. These we probably use a lot for now. I kind of feel like this one. Let's just try commenting that out for a second. Where does that get used? Nearly nowhere. 2 places. Wait. And, oh, right, okay. And here, where do these come from? Line number and character number. Okay, fine. We're deciding we're going to delete this and we'll just deal with it. So there, and then interp dot. Wait, what? 1760. What? $17.64. Oh, I just changed it. Right. That's why I'm so confused. I just changed it. 1756. Right. We're just going to say asked dummy dot L0 is R1 dot S64 dummy dot C0 is R2 dot S64 dummy dot L0 dummy dot C1 is dummy dot C0 plus 1 and dummy I hope we don't need a load directive there. Let's check that. We need a load info for that. Okay, this was a mistake. We're not going to do this right now. Sometimes we make mistakes. We'll work on that more later, but this I just wanted to make some headway there because it was a little too many stupid overloads for stupid things. Your NAN is in your room and you can't close your browser. You could try to compile a huge project. $880,618 lines in 3 seconds. Did it actually compile all those lines of code, or is that just the amount of stuff in the project and a lot of it is not compiled? Because that would be a high enough number. I'm suspicious. Like, I think that's achievable, but that doesn't match any of the other numbers that I'm seeing on the web. Like, that's 1 to 2 orders of magnitude off of all the other numbers that I've been seeing on the web, which would be great if it's actually that fast, but that doesn't sound right. Try what on stream? All right. So this works. And this works. And if those warnings are not good, we'll do it later. And that about exhausts my patience for working on warnings and errors today. There's still a lot more to do about making sure the warnings and errors have good, like, lexical positioning. In fact, one of those warnings that's coming out in the tests right now doesn't. But we have officially in the roadmap a time when we're going to do a sprint when we just work on error quality. And so that'll be part of that. For now, I think I want to get more of a feel for what errors look like as they come up in day-to-day work so that I can decide, like, if there needs to be more infrastructure somehow, or if this is just something where we go hit all the end points. Okay, remove a few interp report overloads, or maybe just one since the last check-in. I don't know. How are we doing for code? 41856, we're going down. Did I try the current color theme in command? No, let's do that. I'm sure it's ugly. That's actually not terrible. It's readable. I mean, this console is not that readable in general, so I'll take this as not the worst. After returning the Alienware, has any other laptop caught your eye? No. People keep recommending me laptops. The problem is all the laptop makers are frickin' lemmings, right? Okay, so there's basically 4 things that I want, and without which I just won't buy a new laptop, right? So one, So one, I want a matte screen that's not frickin' glossy. And unfortunately, everybody does glossy screens because touch screens are glossy, and everybody thinks you still need to have a touch screen interface to Windows, even though that failed horribly, right? So that's one. 2, friggin' trackpad buttons. Because I shouldn't have to explain why to anybody. The experience is so bad on Windows of trying to use that trackpad with tap to click turned on and just accidentally deleting all your files all the time or dragging them, whatever. Your focus just randomly switching to whatever you accidentally tap clicked on. It's horrible. 3, not having the stupid numpad on the side and forcing the trackpad in the home row to be like off center on the laptop. That's very bad ergonomically, obviously, right? What's 4? Those are sort of the main 3, really. I feel like there's another one, but I'm not remembering. Anyway, good luck finding a laptop with all 3 of those now, because the decisions are so badly made, you just can't really get that. This Alienware 15 was one laptop where all those things were true. unfortunately, it's a giant piece of garbage. So I haven't chosen anything. I'm still using my old laptop right now because nobody really has anything. What about a Dell laptop? Oh, well, I need a GPU in there. That's the fourth thing, right? Is like I run high-end 3D graphics. I need a reasonably fast GPU in the laptop. I already said no numpad. That was point number 2. XPS 15 doesn't have mouse buttons anymore. Please don't mention it. It looks like crap. Right? So like if I pull up a screenshot of Dell XPS 15 2018, let's just watch a video. Laptop reviewers are such fucking hacks at this point. They never tell you anything actually useful about the goddamn thing, which is why, like, look how glossy that screen is, first of all. That's horrible. Just look at how thin that keyboard is. That's awful. Why is he looking at the case? I want to see what I'm typing on. Like, you already can tell this is a shitty review. Okay, there we go. See that? No physical trackpad buttons. It's just a trackpad with a line on it. No sale, bro. If this had a matte screen and physical buttons, I would buy it. Well, maybe a better keyboard. It's just everybody's copying the Mac. They're all stupid and copying the MacBook because they have no ideas of their own. But they're copying the MacBook while trying to have a low price. So they just keep doing cheaper and crappier stuff. And I don't mean just Dell there. Everybody is doing that. How about Asus ROG? The last I checked, didn't that have... Oh, that had the trackpad on the side, right? Have they announced a Coffee Lake Asus ROG? Let's see. No trackpad buttons right there, bro. No sale. How is it Republic of Gamers if there's no trackpad button? Explain that to me. Oh, also it has the numeric pad on the side, which is bad. How is it a gamer laptop if it doesn't have physical buttons? Fucking... All the people marketing this are stupid. Like... They must hire the people who dictate these laptop designs from stupid school of design and industry or something. Like, I don't even know. Yeah, give me the full-size reverse T arrow keys. That would be great. I would love that. What do I think of phones removing the audio jack? It's terrible, and I am annoyed by my iPhone daily because of that. Yeah, 16 by 9 is also not a good screen dimension. Like, you can pile a list of all the obvious problems with laptops that, like, just fix all of them and you would have a good machine, and nobody does it. Hundreds of laptop makers out there. I mean, not that many major ones, but, you know, nobody makes the obvious good thing. So... Don't talk bad about stupid school of design and industry. All right. Why is 16 by 9 bad? Because you want vertical real estate when you're reading text. You're like squishing your text into this tiny window. And then, of course, they ship Windows on it in a default mode where the taskbar goes on the bottom, eating up even more vertical space. And then you try to use something like Visual Studio, right? That was release build. And then it's designed to use up as much frickin' vertical space as possible. Like, watch when I'm in the debugger. It's horrible. It's like, I did this once during stream. I like went over all the vertical space that was being wasted in Visual Studio. It's better now if you, I guess we don't ever break there. Let's break there. Oh, wait. Break there. Can I get a breakpoint? Apparently not. I just want a breakpoint. All right. So like all of this is not my program. This is not my program, and this is not my program, right? So that's like this much plus that much plus that much. It's like more than a quarter of the screen height is taken up by bars that mostly don't have anything. Look, this is all empty space. This is just decorative, right? This is just decorative. Like there's no useful information here. And then stuff like these windows, like they have the name down here and up here. It's not as bad because now I'm on a 4K display, but back before when I was 1440p, like this was really horrible. It's just stupid. And this is 16 by 10, by the way, right? I think this is 16 by 10. On 16 by 9, you know, cut off about this much to begin with. Control Alt Enter. You get full screen for Visual Studio? Apparently not. Acer Predator 17X, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what that is. Nope. Look at where that trackpad is. Garbage. I don't want to sit way over here and be like this when I'm trying to type on my laptop. That's stupid. You're going to give yourself carpal tunnel so fast because like you're trying to sit in the, your tendency is going to be to sit centered by the display, but the place your hands go is off to the left, right? It's like a crime against humanity to design shit like this because you're going to injure many, many, many people if anyone buys it. Like there's an ethical responsibility not to build this, but people fucking build it. Like what is wrong with you stupid school of design and industry people? I don't understand it. Just get rid of this, slide this over, put speakers on the side like Razer does, done. More people will buy it and more people will buy more laptops because if you sell this to people, then all the people who have brand allegiance are going to injure themselves and not buy more laptops because they can't type anymore due to the pain. I have no price range limit, okay? No, I will pay. I use a laptop a lot. I'm a professional programmer. I would pay $10,000 for a laptop. Nobody will sell me a good laptop for $10,000. It's just not an option. What about Lenovo ThinkPad workstations? Most of them don't have good GPUs. There's a rumor that there's going to be a ThinkPad P1 that got leaked, but there's no solid information about it yet. This might meet the requirements of a good laptop. It'll have a trackpad buttons because ThinkPads generally do, the main lines. I don't know. They could screw it up though. ThinkPads used to be good and then they got trashy, so whatever. Thought about getting a Peli case and a small desktop. No. Gamers want their number pad in case they want to play some Civilization. Fine. Offer the number pad as an option. Just don't force me to use it. Really curious what I think is the best aspect ratio. Laptops were better for programming back in the old days when they were 4x3. They were simply better. There was a time, so in like 2001 or 2002, I had a 19, whatever the 4x3 is, 16 by 12 laptop, right? It was 1280p or whatever, or 1280 in the vertical. And then everybody decided to make 1080p for like 8 years after that. So for 8 years, I could never have a laptop with as much vertical resolution as I had in 2001. It was super stupid, more than 8 years even. 4x3 is probably better for programming because 16 by 9 and 16 by 10 are not really wide enough to do. I mean, I guess at 4K, it's kind of good enough to be able to do this, but you can't really do this with applications, have two up, right? And on a laptop screen that's physically smaller, it's harder to read if you have this size of type, right? The reason this works for me right now is because I have a physically big screen in front of me, so the letters are big. This is uncomfortable on a smaller physical display. And even then, like my lines are all getting cut off here and stuff. So, you either want wider than this so you can put two up, or you want taller. This is just, and this is 1610, right? 16:9 is worse than this. Maybe Schenker XMG. I don't know what that is. Sounds like a gun from Arma 4. XMG 407 Pro gaming laptop. Come on, click, click. Trackpad off center. It's not horrendously off center, but it is off center. I don't know why. They have these extra buttons on the side, which is kind of stupid. That's why the trackpad's off center, because the home row's off center. Aside from that, I don't know. Let's look at what the screen is. I don't know German. Full HD, 1080p IPS display. Fuck you. 1080p, my ass. It's 2018. Calling that full HD in 2018 is so stupid. Why are laptop makers so bad at what they do? Can I configure Barbarian this and give a different display? All right, I don't know what I'm looking at here. This one has a numpad. All these images have numpad. I don't know. Yeah. Have I tried the Surface Book 2? Yes, it doesn't have fucking buttons. Why do you people keep saying this? Like, Surface Book 2. Look at that. Look at that piece of shit. No buttons. Fuck you. Goodbye. What's so bad about 1080p? Because text is blurry at 1080p. Is 1440p enough for a laptop? I would say that's the low end of what's acceptable. Anywhere between 1440p and 4K is good. Yeah, I found no good options for laptops, and it's really frustrating. In my own fantasies, right, if I had made way more money off video games than I did, such that I could start a second company, I would have started a frickin' laptop company and like made high-end professional programmer tool laptops. But I don't have quite that much disposable money. It's so obvious to me what the good laptop is, and nobody makes it. So, if I had an extra $20 to $30 million laying around, I would try that. But I don't, so... Let's fund it. We're a Kickstarter, yeah. I'm going to Kickstarter $20 million for my laptop company. Do some consulting. Yeah. Yep. Well, where are we at? I have one lexical range comment that I want to look for. Let's get rid of all my breakpoints so I'm not annoyed by them later. Oh, set the end of the block. Yes. Oh, but this is just for static ifs. You know, I'm not sure. I'm just going to elaborate on this comment. I am not sure right now if we should make static ifs range include the blocks or if we should do query functions like, what was it called? Copy rightmost lexical extent and have the range just be, have the range on static ifs node just be the range of the text if. Yeah, I'm not sure what the right answer is there. So my tactic in these kind of situations is to leave the question open for a while and just see what I think about it later when I have more experience. System 76, I think I looked at this. Origin PC. Don't send me off-center trackpads, please. Someone sent me this one too. This one looks like it has an off-center trackpad, but can I configure it to not have? Pop! OS or Ubuntu, I'm going to have to install Windows on this later then. And I don't know if it'll successfully install and detect all the hardware, but let's hope so. Graphics. 1070, okay, that's reasonable. Rather have a 1080, but 1070 is okay. Display 1080p my ass. It's matte, but come on. What's the processor? i7-8750H. Is that Coffee Lake? What is that? Coffee Lake. Okay, so that's fine. Memory 32. OS drive. Only 1 terabyte. Bite me. Good thing I bought a 2 terabyte for this stupid Alienware that I... So I would go cheap and then swap it out. 2 terabyte NVMe on Amazon is $700 right now. So they're ripping you off right here, by the way. No option for a high-res display. No option to change the keyboard to not be an off-center trackpad. No sale, bros. Oh, the display option changes if you choose 1070. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay, select GTX 70 to add the option. They should highlight that. Okay, here we go. Good. Good. Still no keyboard option. It's very close to good. Very close to something I would buy. But if I can't get rid of the numeric keypad, I don't want it. Very close. I'm still annoyed that I have to buy this and then swap out the M2. Yeah, this looks decent. Like, and it's pretty cheap. I would pay more. I would pay $5,000 to get this same laptop with a centered keyboard. Like, I'd pay more than that if you would frickin' ship it to me with a 2 terabyte M2 drive. And I would pay even more if you would install Windows on it with no bloatware. Yeah, very close. Try this Sager. I haven't bought a Sager in a long time. Intel Graphics 620? No. Can't do it. They will sell me a 2 terabyte Evo though. That's good. Thank you for $700. Unlike these rip-off bros right here. Oh wait, is that a PCIe versus SATA thing? Oh, this is PCIe. Maybe that's more expensive? No, because the one I bought was PCIe. I don't know. Uh, 1 terabyte Evo. Yeah, a 1 terabyte 960 Evo here is like $500. And a 1 terabyte of unspecified brand is $700. They're just overcharging you. Okay. Like, I don't... How do I know what I'm getting for a keyboard and trackpad? A trusted brand for gaming. Okay, it looks like it has buttons. It looks like it's got extra keys along the side, which is not great. Wait, is that only one button? It's got good arrow keys, so that's good. Only one button? What? Why is the stupid the stupid school of design and industry have such far-reaching employment placement for its graduates? Like, also, they have the frickin' function button over here, which is annoying. I don't know. It's just you. One button, but either side would probably click. Yes, and I've owned laptops that work that way, and they suck. All right. I'm giving up. Obviously, nobody in the world knows how to make a good laptop anymore. They do know how to make car alarms, though. They make car alarms that go non-stop. Yeah, that keyboard looks a little too cheap as well, but it's hard to tell from a picture. Like the fact that they're screenshotting it in a Tesla Model S and the Model S is most of the image is embarrassing. Like, show me your laptop, not a Tesla. I've had a Tesla for 8 years. It's not aspirational for me. I guess it's aspirational for a lot of people. Just give me the information. Give me the information. Give me the car alarm. That's their high-end thing. Wait, there's Bonobo, 7 Serval. That looks very thick and beefy. This is just a rebranded MSI laptop right here. And it's got a keypad on the side. Yeah, like a lot of these companies just resell you Sager and MSI laptops, and that's what's happening here. Which is fine. Like if my priority was to buy a laptop that ran Linux and I didn't have as many, I don't know. All right, let's do some more work. So one thing I want to do is, I don't play PUBG on a laptop. That's ridiculous. No. Whoops, I just closed my Twitch window by mistake because we've got all these laptop windows open. Let me get back to chat. All right. Okay. So on the error reporting, I want to make it not, I want to make the indentation of the error report and not dependent on the indentation of the source program, right? So let's go back to our bug 179 and we'll build a test case, right? So if I do the following, well, let's come back, bring all this back. I'm going to put this here. So I could have this, or I could have if true, while true, this stuff, if OS Windows, this stuff, right? Okay, so this first one, when we report that error, it's like there, right? So if I fix that one and we report the other one, now it's like way out here, right? So what I want to do is do a two-pass situation where we look at the lines that we're going to report, we figure out the minimum indentation, we subtract that off the left, and then etc. Does that make sense? Razer Project Valerie. That actually might not be too bad. Having it on the right-hand side is fine. Oh, but the keyboard is on the left. Yeah, that sucks. No. Man, this car alarm. Anyway, so the first step I'm going to do is just make this a two-pass operation here, right? So right now we just loop over the lines and we do them once. Now I just want to make it so I loop over them, I put them into a collection, and then we loop over that collection and do the same thing that we're doing here. And then once we have that collection, we can do some analysis on it and so forth. Okay. I should perform a public service of just going out there and disconnecting that car's battery. Or just having it towed. So okay, num carrots. Num carrots. We're going to have to deal with all of this. Okay. We're going to say, here's our big loop. We're going to say local array char star lines. And we're going to do something there. And then we're going to say for, we're going to do something there. Okay. So we're going to have a line info. And this is going to be an array of line info. And then this. Okay. Add info, but dot start is input cursor info dot length is n minus input cursor, like that. And then we get a line there, and we say line dot length we want to make sure, I wish I could say descope input cursor here, because it's like I never want you to see that again. Okay. Oh wait, input cursor is an integer, right? Yeah. Input.data plus input cursor. Line.start. Line.start, line.length. Okay. So let's see, do we use input cursor? No. Okay. Maybe that's right. Obviously not, because of stupid casting tricks. Let's make this U8, because that's what everybody else was. Oh yeah, 1334 items. Oh, did Handmade Hero start? We had a big drop off in attendance. What is a local array? It's just an array that assumes that if you have a small number of items, it wants to store them locally. So like, I'll go to it. It's just a performance thing, right? So all it is like, hey, we have some initial array size of 16. So if you're less than 16 items, that's just on us, right? If you go over that, then we allocate dynamically the way a normal array does, but otherwise we just keep those. You don't want to use this for everything because if you're storing a lot of arrays with 0 items on data structures, then this uses a ton of extra memory, right? Okay. So that compiled. And it still works. That's a good step. Now, well, we can do some things. I wanted to detect if a line is empty. This is all going to get way more complicated if we do like UTF-8 and there's all kinds of crazy spaces and stuff. So I'm going to put a little incomplete note there because I don't want to think about it. But basically, we want to look at how many spaces a line is. If the line is completely white space, then we just don't care. Well, let's just start programming it. So our line info can say int leading spaces, right? Okay, we say if end is equal to this, if doing initial spaces leading spaces plus plus, right? If it's not a space, doing initial spaces is false. You know, we could like unroll this into a multi-state, slightly faster thing, but we don't care because it's just error reporting on a small number of lines. So there we go. All right, so we count the leading spaces for everybody. Now, if it's only spaces, then we don't want it to limit how many spaces we cut off. Because if you have a line with 32 spaces and another line with 32 spaces, and then a line that's blank in between them that only has 10 spaces or something random, but that's because it's just a new line, we don't want that to count towards how many spaces we are willing to cut off. So I'm going to say info.allWhiteSpace equals doing initial spaces. So if we exited this loop and we never set this to false, it means, oh wait. Actually, we don't need a separate thing for this because our length will be equal to leading spaces. So let's try that. Okay, so int min indentation equals 0 for lines if it dot well, bool all space equals it dot leading spaces is equal to it dot length. If all space continue, This should be like int max or something. If min indentation is equal to -1, min indentation equals info.leading spaces, else if okay. And then after all that, if we have more than 0 for lines, I mean, yeah, whatever. So info dot info dot start plus equals min indentation. What is that going to do? Oh, and then you got to do that or our highlights are going to be off. Okay, 1353 info. This is it. Probably did that later, yep. Same down here. All right. This is debug build. Uh-oh, I didn't run that before, so maybe it's all hosed. Nope, it's fine. Well, it didn't appear to do anything. Let's say cutting off the leading spaces. Leading space is 0. Really? Doing initial spaces. Not if end, it's if star end. I hope somebody caught that. I hope somebody caught that. Nobody did. Nobody did. Illegal indirect. Wait, what? Oh, and it's not. It's like I should look at what the program is. Okay, 16, 16, 12. 16, 16, 16. We don't appear to have removed 16 characters from there. Okay, print. Min indentation. Let's just see what happens. Min indentation 12. Min indentation 16. We should go. Why don't we? Because we're using something old down here. it.length, it.start. Point is line.start. Oh, because we've got a copy of this. Frickin'. If we're gonna mutate it, we should actually do that. Please. I keep saying count when I mean items. I should change that. All right. Hey, check it out. Except our caret, well, in the second one, this is fine. Our caret's in the right place. Our thing is shunted off to the left. Let's get rid of the dumb things. Great. And then let's check our earlier. If we ignore it here, that is also, right? That's line 42, that's line 50. So hey, they're extented to the same level. What happens if this one is way out there? Hey, look, it's way out there. That's great. What happens if it's way in here? It's way in there. Great. So to a first approximation, this appears to work. Let's test it on everybody. Boom. 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 Let's check these messages a little bit. There. There. Yep. All right. We may want to indent it more later, but for now we're going to leave it with the 4 spaces. All right, that's great. That was everything. Oh, 419. Oh my God, we added code. So those are the things that I wanted to do. And with that, it's time for me to take a break, maybe get some real breakfast. Any last questions? Let me check to see if Handmade Heroes on. I think it is. We could maybe host it. It is up. All right. You prefix lines with greater than. Yeah, we had that until yesterday, and then I took it out. All right, thanks everybody for coming by. We'll probably do some more streams later today. Maybe programming on the game for once. Thanks for coming by, and we'll see you later. Now you can visit Casey.
Our file, so then we can do why don't you parse so I don't know what this wants to look like yet, so I'm just going to literally do exactly what it looks like. And presumably, what we want to do here is pass the file in, and we'll just have something that start out with just the real basic stuff of trying to parse what's in the file. That's all we're going to do, right? So nothing fancy. Just see if we can get the basics of what's in the file working. Now, another thing that I want to point out here is this is not something that's meant for robust use. So basically, like,